He drove taxi for 40 years. Same yellow cab. Same quiet routes through downtown Chicago. Passengers saw an old man with tired eyes and calloused hands, until one ride to the military base changed everything. A young Marine officer spotted something in the glove compartment. A medal, not just any medal. The kind that only the bravest warriors earn, and only the most humble hide away. Welcome to Silent Hero Stories. Before we start this powerful story, tell me in the comments what city you are watching from today. If you believe silent heroes deserve recognition, hit that subscribe button. These stories matter. Eddie Williams started his shift every morning at 5 a.m., Chicago Yellow Cab Company. Car number 47. Same routine for 40 years. Same dedication to the job. Eddie was 68 years old, African American, gray beard that had been white for the last decade, tired but kind eyes that had seen too much. He wore an old baseball cap that never came off, covering scars that passengers never asked about. The taxi was a 2010 Ford Crown Victoria, old but immaculate. Eddie maintained it like his life depended on it. Every morning, check the engine, clean the windows, vacuum the seats, organize the interior. Military precision in civilian work. Eddie had started driving in 1984. He was 28 then, fresh out of the Marines, trying to figure out civilian life. 4 decades later, he was still figuring it out. But Eddie was different from other drivers. His posture was too straight, his movements too precise, his eyes constantly scanned mirrors, not just for traffic, but for threats that no longer existed. Passengers noticed Eddie's quirks, the way he positioned his seat for quick exit, the way he always knew alternate routes, not just for traffic, but like escape routes, the way his hands rested on the wheel, ready for evasive maneuvers. "Eddie, you drive like you're in a movie," Mrs. Patterson joked one morning. "Just staying alert, ma'am." Alert for what? You never know. Eddie knew Chicago better than the GPS. 40 years of streets, shortcuts, patterns, but more than that, he knew people. He remembered every regular passenger, their stories, their struggles. Mrs. Chen, the elderly Chinese woman, rode twice a week to visit her husband in the VA hospital. Eddie never charged her full fare, and always helped her with her heavy bag. "Mr. Eddie, you too kind." "Take care of yourself, Mrs. Chen." "How's Mr. Chen doing?" "Better days, worse days." "Tell him I asked about him." Young college students got rides to campus. Eddie kept their fares reasonable and always had advice. "Study hard. Education opens doors." "Yes, sir, Mr. Eddie. You sound like my dad." Smart father. Business executives got efficient, quiet rides. Eddie understood that some people needed silence, others needed conversation. He read people like he once read terrain, carefully, completely. But Eddie's biggest mystery was his military knowledge. When passengers mentioned service, Eddie's responses were too detailed, too specific. "My son just got stationed at Paris Island," a worried mother said. "Good base, they'll train him right there." "You know about Marine training?" "I know a little about it." "Were you in the service?" "Long time ago." Eddie would say no more, but his knowledge was encyclopedic. He knew base locations, unit designations, training procedures. He knew the weight in a veteran's voice, the look in a combat soldier's eyes. One evening, a young veteran got in Eddie's cab. Fresh back from Afghanistan, struggling. Eddie saw it immediately. "Where to, son?" "Just drive. Anywhere." Eddie drove through quiet neighborhoods. No meter running, just 2 veterans sharing silence. "It gets easier," Eddie said finally. "What does?" "Being home. Feeling normal again." The young soldier looked at Eddie differently. "You served?" "Vietnam. Long time ago." "How long before it stops feeling weird?" "Couple years. Maybe more. But it does stop." Eddie drove for another hour. When they finally stopped, the young veteran tried to pay. "No charge, son." "Sir, I can't." "You already paid. We all did." That was Eddie. Silent service, no fanfare, just doing what needed to be done. 3 times a week, Eddie got calls for military runs. Naval Station Great Lakes, Marine Corps Recruit Depot. He preferred these rides. Something about uniformed passengers made Eddie feel at home. Young Marines and sailors respected Eddie instinctively. They called him Pop or Sir. Eddie appreciated their discipline, their bearing. "Pop, can you take us downtown?" "Copy that. Buckle up." The Marines looked at each other. Civilian drivers didn't say, "Copy that." "Pop, you serve?" Eddie glanced in the rearview mirror. "Marines, long time ago." "No kidding? What years?" 74 to 76. "Vietnam? End of it, yeah." The young Marines got excited. Vietnam Marines were legends to them. "Pop, what was your MOS?" E0311. "Infantry." "Combat?" "Some." Eddie's answers were always understated, but his knowledge was extensive. When the Marines talked weapons, Eddie knew specifications. When they discussed tactics, Eddie offered corrections. "That's not how you clear a room," Eddie said quietly. "What? The technique you described gets people killed. Better to." Eddie described perfect close-quarters battle tactics, room-clearing procedures, fireteam movements. The Marines listened with growing respect. "Pop, you know this stuff really well. Experience. What kind of experience?" Eddie met their eyes in the mirror, the kind that keeps Marines alive. But Eddie never boasted, never told war stories. He answered questions, but didn't volunteer information. One afternoon, 3 Marines were discussing their upcoming deployment. "I'm nervous," admitted the youngest one, Private Rodriguez. "Natural," Eddie said. "Fear keeps you sharp. You were scared in Vietnam?" "Terrified. Every day. But you did your job anyway." "That's what Marines do. Feel the fear, do the job anyway." Eddie pulled up to their destination. As they got out, Rodriguez lingered. "Pop, any advice for a new Marine?" Eddie turned around, looked Rodriguez in the eye. "Trust your training. Take care of your brothers. Come home safe." "Yes, sir." "And Rodriguez?" "Yes, Pop, you'll do fine. You're a Marine." These rides became Eddie's favorite part of the job, not just transportation, mentorship. He was still taking care of Marines, just differently. Tuesday morning, 0800. Eddie got a priority call. Military passenger, high priority, Naval Station Great Lakes. Eddie arrived at the Marriott downtown. A young Marine officer waited outside. Second Lieutenant Mike Torres, 24 years old, dressed blue uniform with fresh gold bars. This was his first duty assignment. "Are you my ride to the base?" "Yes, sir." "Lieutenant Torres?" "Correct." Mike got in the front seat. Eddie noticed his nervousness immediately. Rigid posture, fidgeting hands, checking his uniform constantly. "First day at Great Lakes, Lieutenant?" "Yes." "Important meeting with the base commander, Colonel Martinez?" Mike looked surprised. "You know Colonel Martinez? Drive to the base a lot. Good officer, fair man." As they pulled into traffic, Eddie's calm presence began to ease Mike's nerves. "Pop, you mentioned you were Marines?" "Yeah. Different time though. Vietnam era? End of it. Most of my buddies missed the big action." "But you saw combat?" Eddie was quiet for a moment. "Some. Enough." Mike wanted to ask more, but sensed Eddie's reluctance. Instead, they talked about the Marine Corps in general. "What's it like?" Mike asked. "Really being a Marine? Best and worst job in the world." "How so?" "Best because you serve something bigger than yourself. Worst because," Eddie paused, "because you see things, do things, lose people." Mike nodded. He'd heard this from other veterans. "Any advice for a new officer?" "Take care of your Marines. They'll take care of you." "What else?" "Know your job. Trust your training. Make decisions. Even wrong decisions are better than no decisions." They were halfway to the base when Eddie needed the vehicle registration. Routine security checkpoint ahead. Eddie reached for the glove compartment, popped it open. Mike saw inside maps, registration, a small flashlight, road flares, and something else, a small wooden box, polished oak, the kind used for military decorations. It was partially open, revealing a glimpse of ribbon and metal inside. Even from his angle, Mike recognized it. The distinctive ribbon pattern, Navy Cross. Eddie quickly grabbed the registration and closed the glove box, but Mike had seen enough. "Pop, was that a Navy Cross?" Eddie's hands tightened on the steering wheel. Long pause. "You saw that, huh?" "Yes, sir. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to look." "It's okay, Lieutenant." Mike's mind raced. Navy Cross recipients were legendary heroes. What was one doing driving taxi? "Pop, can I ask, what did you do to earn that?" Another long pause. Eddie stared straight ahead. "What I had to do. I mean, the Navy Cross is the second highest. I know what it is, son." The weight in Eddie's voice told Mike to tread carefully. "Pop, what unit were you with?" "3rd Marines, 1st Battalion." Mike knew that unit. Famous fighting unit. Legendary Vietnam battles. What operations? Operation Prairie. Operation Hastings. Some others nobody talks about. Mike's eyes widened. Those weren't minor skirmishes. Those were major operations. Brutal combat. Pop, those were some of the hardest fighting in Vietnam. Yes, they were. How long were you in country? 2 tours. 27 months total. Mike was stunned. Most Marines served single 13-month tours. 2 tours meant volunteering to go back. Pop, why did you do 2 tours? Because my Marines were still there. That answer told Mike everything. This wasn't just a veteran. This was a leader who couldn't leave his people behind. They reached the base security checkpoint. Eddie rolled down his window, handed over his registration and ID. "Morning, Pop," the young guard said, taking another officer to see the colonel. "Morning, Corporal Johnson. Yes, Lieutenant Torres here for 0900. Good luck, Lieutenant. Pop will take care of you." As they drove through the base, Mike was curious about that exchange. "Pop, they know you pretty well here. Drive here 3-4 times a week. But he called you Pop, like family." Eddie smiled slightly. "Marines are family." They passed groups of young Marines training, PT runs, drill formations, classroom buildings. Eddie watched them with paternal pride. "Look at them," Eddie said quietly. "Best young men and women in America. You miss it, being active duty? Miss the Marines. Don't miss the war." Eddie parked at the headquarters building. Mike's meeting was in 15 minutes. "Lieutenant, you nervous about this meeting?" "A little." "Don't be. You're a Marine officer. Act like one. What if I mess up? Then you'll learn from it. That's how you become better." Mike appreciated the confidence, but he needed to know more about the man sitting next to him. "Pop, can you tell me what happened with the Navy Cross?" Eddie turned off the engine, looked out at the base. Young Marines everywhere, living the life he once lived. "You really want to know?" "Yes, sir, if you're willing to tell me." Eddie sighed. "Operation Prairie. September 1966. My squad got separated from the company. Ambushed. Cut off." Mike listened intently. 12 Marines in my squad. Heavy casualties in the first few minutes. Radio was destroyed. No communication with headquarters. "What did you do?" "What any Marine would do. Set up a perimeter. Treated the wounded. Held our position. For how long?" 3 days. Mike's eyes widened. 3 days under enemy fire. Cut off, no support. "Pop, how did you survive?" "Training, discipline, and refusing to let my Marines die." Eddie's voice carried authority now. This wasn't a taxi driver telling a story. This was a Marine leader recounting a battle. "On the 2nd day, we ran low on ammunition. I crawled out to collect ammo and weapons from Marines who didn't make it." Mike could hear the weight in Eddie's voice. The cost of leadership. 3rd day, I heard helicopters, extraction birds looking for us. But the LZ was too hot. Enemy had us pinned down. "How did you get out?" "I didn't wait for rescue. I moved my wounded Marines one by one to a safer position. Made 3 trips through enemy fire. By yourself. Couldn't leave them. That's not what Marines do." Eddie opened the glove compartment, pulled out the wooden box. "Want to see it?" Mike nodded reverently. Eddie opened the box. The Navy Cross gleamed inside. The ribbon was faded, but the metal was pristine. "The citation says I showed conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity. But I just did what any squad leader would do." "Pop, that's extraordinary heroism." "No, Lieutenant, that's just Marines taking care of Marines." Mike read the inscription on the box. "Staff Sergeant Edward Williams, USMC, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity in action against the enemy." "Pop, this belongs in the Marine Corps Museum." "No, it belongs with me. Reminds me why I served." "Why did you serve?" Eddie looked out at the young Marines training. "So they could have the chance to serve, to become leaders, to make a difference." He closed the box, put it back in the glove compartment. "Lieutenant, your meeting. Time to go show the colonel what kind of Marine you are." Mike went to his meeting, but he couldn't concentrate on briefings or protocols. He kept thinking about Eddie, a Navy Cross recipient driving taxi for 40 years. A hero hiding in plain sight. The meeting went well. Colonel Martinez was impressed with Mike's preparation and attitude. "Lieutenant, you seem unusually composed for a new officer." "Thank you, sir. I had some good advice on the way here." "From whom?" "My taxi driver, sir." Colonel Martinez smiled. "Let me guess. Eddie Williams?" Mike was surprised. "You know him, sir?" "Every Marine at this base knows Pop. He's a legend." After the meeting, Mike found Eddie waiting in the parking lot, reading a newspaper. "How did it go, Lieutenant?" "Very well. Thank you for the advice. Marines help Marines." On the drive back to downtown, Mike asked the questions that had been burning in his mind. "Pop, does everyone at the base know about your Navy Cross?" "Some do. Word gets around military communities." "Why don't you tell people? Civilians, I mean?" Eddie considered the question. "Because it's not about me, it's about the Marines I served with. But don't you deserve recognition?" "I get all the recognition I need." "How?" "Young Marines like you treat me with respect. Veterans trust me with their stories. That's enough." Mike began to understand. Eddie wasn't hiding his heroism. He was living it differently. "Pop, can I ask something personal?" "Go ahead." "Why taxi driving? With your background, you could have done anything." Eddie smiled. "Lieutenant, you know what I realized after Vietnam?" "What's that?" "The most important mission isn't fighting wars. It's helping people get home safe." Mike looked around the taxi. "That's what you do every day." "Exactly. Different uniform, same mission." As they approached downtown, Mike had one more question. "Pop, any regrets about leaving the Marines?" "None. 27 months in combat was enough. But leaving the Marines?" Eddie shook his head. "Son, you never leave the Marines, you just find new ways to serve." When they reached Mike's hotel, the young officer paid the fare plus a substantial tip. "Pop, this is too much." "It's not nearly enough. Thank you for your service, really." Eddie shook Mike's hand firmly. "Thank you for yours, Lieutenant. Lead your Marines well." That evening, Mike called his father, a Vietnam veteran himself. "Dad, I met a hero today." "What happened?" "My taxi driver. Navy Cross recipient. Vietnam Marine." "What was he like?" "Everything a Marine should be. Humble, professional, dedicated to service. Sounds like a good Marine. The best kind. The kind who serves quietly." Mike's father understood. Those are the ones who keep the Corps strong. Word spread through the base, not as gossip but as respect. The taxi driver was Navy Cross recipient, Staff Sergeant Eddie Williams, Vietnam veteran, genuine hero. Young Marines started requesting Eddie specifically for rides, not because he was famous, but because he was authentic. "Dispatch, this is Corporal Martinez. Can we get Pop for our ride downtown?" "Pop's his first name. Eddie Williams, car 47. Just ask for Pop, he'll know." Eddie's reputation grew, but Eddie remained unchanged. Same professional service, same quiet dignity. One afternoon, a group of Marine recruits finishing boot camp needed rides to the airport. 3 separate taxis. Eddie got one group. "Pop, we heard you're a war hero." "I'm a taxi driver." "But you won the Navy Cross." "I served my country, same as you're doing." The recruits wanted war stories. Eddie gave them something better, wisdom. "Pop, what's the most important thing you learned in combat?" "Take care of your Marines. Everything else is secondary." "What about courage?" "Courage isn't not being scared. Courage is doing what needs to be done despite being scared." "Any advice for new Marines?" Eddie looked at them in the rearview mirror. Young faces, eager expressions, the same look he'd once had. "Serve with honor. Lead by example. Remember that every Marine before you earned the title. Don't disgrace it." The recruits listened like students receiving final instruction. "And most importantly," Eddie continued, "take care of each other. The Marine next to you is your brother. Brothers don't leave brothers behind." At the airport, the recruits pooled their money for a tip. Eddie tried to refuse. "Pop, please, you've given us more than a ride." "What have I given you?" "Hope that we can be Marines like you." Eddie accepted the tip, not for himself, but to honor their gesture. "You already are Marines like me, you just don't know it yet." Eddie continued his routine. Same 5 a.m. start time, same meticulous vehicle maintenance, same routes through Chicago. But now people saw him differently. Not as just a taxi driver, but as a guardian angel on wheels. Mrs. Chen still needed rides to the VA hospital. Eddie still helped with her heavy bags, still charged reduced fares. "Mr. Eddie, people say you famous now." "Not famous, Mrs. Chen, just doing my job." "Good job, important job. Taking care of people is always important." College students still got rides to campus. Eddie still offered encouragement and wisdom. "Pop, my professor says you're a war hero." "Your professor is wrong. I'm a taxi driver who helps students get to class on time." "But you really won medals?" "I won the privilege to serve." "Same privilege you have now with your education." Business executives discovered that Eddie was more than efficient transportation. He was a counselor. "Eddie, I'm having problems with my team at work. They don't respect my leadership." "Leadership isn't about demanding respect. It's about earning it. How do you earn it? Same way you earn everything worthwhile. Show up, do the work, take care of your people. The executive had heard about Eddie's military background. You learned that in the Marines? I learned that in life. Marines just gave me the chance to practice it under pressure. One evening, Eddie picked up a young veteran from the airport. Recently discharged Army soldier, struggling with civilian transition. Where to, son? I don't know, just got back. Everything feels different. Eddie recognized the signs immediately. Post-deployment adjustment. He'd seen it in mirrors for years after Vietnam. First time back. Yeah, 3 tours in Afghanistan. Don't know how to be normal. Eddie turned off the meter, drove through quiet neighborhoods. Same therapy he'd given others. What was your MOS? Infantry. 82nd Airborne. Good unit. Proud tradition. Yeah, but what good is it now? Nobody cares about infantry skills in civilian jobs. Eddie pulled over, turned around to face the young soldier. Son, let me tell you something. The skills that made you a good soldier, discipline, reliability, leadership, taking care of others, those skills matter everywhere. How do you know? Because I've been using them for 40 years. Every day. Different mission. Same skills. Eddie told his story. Vietnam combat. Navy Cross. 40 years of taxi driving. The young soldier listened with growing understanding. You really think civilian life gets easier? I think you learn to find purpose in different places. I found mine helping people get home safe. You'll find yours. Eddie drove the soldier to a Veterans Assistance Center, gave him contact information for support services, and refused payment. You already paid. We all did. Now pay it forward. 3 months later, the soldier called Eddie's company specifically requesting him for a ride. Pop, it's Danny, the soldier you helped from the airport. Danny, how are you doing, son? Good. Really good. Got a job. Apartment. Wanted you to be the first ride to my new place. Eddie smiled as he drove Danny to his apartment. Another Marine, even if he was Army, successfully transitioned home. Pop, I wanted to thank you. That night I was thinking about ending it, but you didn't, because you reminded me that service continues, just differently. That was Eddie's real mission. Not just transportation, but transformation, helping people navigate their journeys, whether across town or through life transitions. One afternoon, Colonel Martinez called for a ride. Unofficial business. Pop, I have a proposition. What's that, Colonel? The base wants to honor you. Ceremony. Recognition. Thanks but no thanks. Why not? Because I'm not done serving. Colonel Martinez smiled. That's exactly why you deserve recognition. Colonel, let me ask you something. What's more important, being honored for past service or continuing to serve? Both are important, Pop. Maybe, but I only have time for one. The colonel understood. Eddie wasn't refusing recognition out of false modesty. He was choosing active service over passive remembrance. Pop, what if we compromise? Small ceremony. Just Marines. Honor the example you set. Eddie considered it. What kind of example? That service never ends. That Marines take care of people. That heroism isn't about medals. It's about daily choices. Eddie finally agreed to a small gathering. Not a ceremony, but a conversation. Eddie talking with young Marines about service, about purpose, about finding mission in civilian life. The event became legendary at the base, not because of speeches or formal recognition, but because of authenticity. A real hero, sharing real wisdom. Pop, what keeps you motivated after all these years? Same thing that motivated me in Vietnam. People need help getting home safe. How do you define home? Wherever people find peace. Sometimes that's a house. Sometimes it's a base. Sometimes it's just knowing someone cares enough to make sure you arrive safely. Eddie Williams had found his definition of home, behind the wheel of a taxi, serving his community with the same dedication he'd once served his country, because real Marines never retire. They just find new ways to complete the mission. Every fare was a Marine to protect. Every passenger was someone's son or daughter to bring home safe. Every day was another opportunity to serve. And at the end of each shift, Eddie would clean his taxi, check his equipment, and prepare for the next day's mission. Same dedication, same precision, same purpose, different uniform, same Marine. Now I ask you, have you ever met someone like Eddie? Someone who understood that service never ends, just evolves. Someone whose heroism wasn't in their past, but in their daily choices. Share their name in the comments. Tell us how they served. At Silent Heroes Stories, we believe the greatest heroes often work the night shift, drive the quiet routes, and measure their success not in recognition, but in people safely delivered home. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. These silent legends deserve to have their stories told. See you in the next story. And remember, your taxi driver, your bus driver, the person behind the wheel helping you reach your destination, might just be the hero you never knew was there.
Because heroes don't retire, they just change vehicles.